Hey guys, today we'll be covering a 2021 romantic comedy film called Luli. Luli Flores is a young woman who aims to be a surgeon. She is ambitious, hardworking, and diligent. Her only drawback in life is being an awful listener. Luli is always busy in her head and hardly pays attention when people talk. This habit is especially annoying to her boyfriend Diego. The night before the first day of their residency, the couple goes to a club to celebrate. They are excited to finally practice medicine outside of books. While everyone is having the best time of their lives, Diego seems to be down. He tells Luli that he wants to quit medical school, but she dismisses the conversation and drags him to the dance floor instead. A while later, Diego tries to start the conversation again, but Luli is busy skimming through the menu and talking about food. He recently flew back from Canada and has had mild pain in his thigh ever since. He has told Luli about it on several occasions, but she asks him again, much to Diego's annoyance. When Luli is alone, her best friend Vanessa comes to talk to her. The two have been inseparable ever since their early school days. They notice Diego getting a little too close to a senior doctor and the residency professor named Paula. When he returns a while later, Luli sarcastically asks him about Paula. Diego just laughs it off, saying that Paula actually listens to him, unlike Luli. This does nothing but make her even more jealous. She hides the jealousy with anger and lashes out at him for being dramatic about his career. In a fit of rage, she also claims that he is not meant to be a doctor. Diego can do nothing but look at her in disappointment and hurt. Luli instantly regrets what she said and apologizes, but it doesn't make him feel any better. Suddenly, he starts to get an allergic reaction because of the shrimp in the food Luli ordered. In the following scene, the two are being taken to a hospital in an ambulance. Luli asks him why he never told her about his allergy, but it turns out that Diego had mentioned it numerous times before. Having had enough of her being rude and absent from his life, he breaks up with her. Luli almost cannot believe it because she thinks she did nothing wrong. The following day, she wakes up early and rushes to the hospital for her first day of residency. On her way, she meets Julio, her childhood friend and former boyfriend. They talk briefly before she rushes to the bus stop. At the hospital, she and Vanessa spot Diego with Paolo yet again. They figure out that Paolo must have convinced him against dropping out. Their friendship makes Luli jealous, but she can do nothing because Paula is her senior. Throughout the day, she notices that Paula pays extra attention to Diego. On their way to the general ward, the residents are told not to attend to patients without a senior doctor present. But as always, Luli doesn't listen. Later, she is about to inject a patient with a drug when Paula stops her, informing her that that particular patient is allergic to the medicine. Luli, embarrassed, apologizes to her and promises she will never do something like that again. Next, the residents are given the case of a 60-year-old alcoholic, Oscar. They take him to the MRI lab to get him tested, but in the middle of the test, the lights and screens start to flicker. The lab assistant goes outside to fix it, telling Diego and Luli to wait outside. However, Luli doesn't listen yet again and runs inside the lab to check on Oscar. Diego follows her to stop her, but the two are hit with a load of electricity. The accident knocks them out immediately. When Luli opens her eyes, she finds herself on a hospital bed with Vanessa checking up on her. She asks her if Paula and Diego are really dating. Vanessa tells her friend that it is impossible, only to make her feel better. In her head, she thinks that they are most definitely dating. Strangely enough, Luli can hear Vanessa's thoughts. She thinks she is going crazy and decides to take a rest. When no one is looking, she runs away from the hospital in a hurry. On her way, she bumps into several people and can hear all of their thoughts. On the bus, Luli accidentally touches a woman's hand and hears her complaining about her boss. She freaks out and runs to the back of the bus where an old woman is thinking of how bad her legs hurt. In a moment of panic, Luli yells to the passengers to give the old woman a seat. Later, she goes to Julio's volleyball practice to cheer for him. After the practice, she checks his leg injury. It turns out that he doesn't really have a leg injury and is lying because he doesn't want to play as a server in the finals. Luli hears his thoughts and calls him out on it. Later at home, they get into a conversation about their love life, and Luli finds out that he is gay after reading his thought. Julio is shocked at the revelation and finally believes that she has a unique power. They decide to keep each other's secret and not tell anyone about Julio being gay or Luli's power. Just then, Vanessa barges in and asks them what is going on. Julio panics and reveals that Luli can read minds. The three go to a bridge and talk about everything. After testing Luli's abilities a few times, Vanessa is in shock. She wants to find out if her crush Ricardo likes her back. The next day in the hospital, Diego kisses Luli and acts like they never broke up. She touches him to try to find out what is going on in his mind, but cannot seem to read his thoughts. Later, she talks to Paula and finds out that, because of the accident, Diego has lost his memory of what happened yesterday. This means that he doesn't remember breaking up with her. Luli wants to tell him what happened between them, but decides against it. She also touches Paula to see what her true feelings towards Diego are. It is revealed that Paula thinks of him as her son because she is her father's colleague and has known him since childhood. Relieved, Luli can now actually focus on her work. Ironically, she who didn't listen to people can now read her patients' thoughts. Because of her ability, she can tell when they are lying. By the end of the day, she makes 2 right diagnoses and impresses Paula. Hal even uses Luli as an example to make the other residents understand how important it is to listen to their patients. However, Luli feels like she is starting to go crazy. She hears things that people do not want to share, which is a violation of their privacy. Vanessa wants her to enjoy her power, but Luli is adamant about wanting to get rid of it as soon as possible. The next day, Julio and Vanessa take her to a spiritual class where she meets a fortune teller. The lady makes vague assumptions about Luli's life that sound true, but when she holds her hand for a palm reading, Luli reads her thoughts and finds out she is a con artist. After the disastrous encounter, they go to a club and meet Diego. Vanessa sees her crush Ricardo with her rival, Elena. She interrupts their conversation and starts to flirt with him, much to Elena's annoyance. After she walks away, Ricardo reveals that Elena is about to quit med school because her parents are moving abroad and she has nowhere to live. For the first time in her life, Vanessa feels bad for Elena. As the two talk, Julio interrupts him and introduces himself. He instantly seems interested in Ricardo, but is unsure if he is gay. In the meantime, Luli makes jokes about ordering shrimp for dinner, which makes Diego uncomfortable. He starts to get flashes of the events that happened the day they broke up. He also has shortness of breath, but thinks that it's just fatigue. Outside the club, Vanessa approaches Elena and apologizes for being rude to her. They put their rivalry aside and have a long chat about life in general. At last, Vanessa invites her to stay at her apartment until she earns enough money to get a place of her own. After a long night, Diego and Luli go to his home to celebrate their one-year anniversary. They cook dinner, drink, and make love. The following morning, Diego's father barges into the room to a naked Luli lying on the bed. They talk briefly and have breakfast together. Diego's father is an arrogant man who is never really present in his life. He is also one of the top surgeons in the country and wants his son to be like him. The reason why Diego wanted to drop out was his father always pressed him to do better, which made things worse for him. Later that day, Diego is in front of the MRI room. The view gives him flashes of the accident, which makes him feel uneasy. He again has difficulty breathing, which he again associates with fatigue. Following that, Luli meets her patient Oscar, whose condition is deteriorating since the last test. He claims to have done everything the doctors asked him to, but Luli finds out he is not taking his meds. It turns out that Oscar's son hates him for being a drunkard. He hasn't spoken to him in years, and hence Oscar is punishing himself for being a bad father. The doctors believe that Oscar needs surgical drainage. However, they know that he is not in the right mind to allow them to perform surgery. For surgical consent, they need to find an immediate family member, in this case, his son Caesar. Diego and Luli take it upon themselves to convince Caesar to help his father. The couple goes to meet him and finds out that Oscar was a horrible father to Caesar. He didn't come to any of Caesar's school programs, including his graduation. At the end of the day, he used to return home drenched in alcohol. Diego relates to the story because his father was also too busy to be there for him. At last, they manage to convince Caesar, who consents to his father's surgery. Right after, the brain surgery takes place, and a few hours later, they are told it was successful. That night, Luli tells her mother about her power. Initially, her mother laughs, thinking she is just joking, but then Luli showcases her skills, much to her mother's surprise. She is worried for her daughter, but Luli makes her understand that no doctor can treat her condition, which means she will have to wait for it to go away on its own. After that, her entire group goes to watch Julio's volleyball match. Julio lets go of his fear and performs the best out of the team. In the end, his team wins, and everyone congratulates him. Later, we see him and Ricardo hugging, indicating the start of their romantic relationship. Vanessa laughs at herself for not knowing that her crush was gay. The following day at work, Oscar gains consciousness and hugs his son. The sight makes Diego and Luli's hearts melt. Diego leans down to kiss her when suddenly his memories come back and he remembers the hurtful things Luli said to him the night they broke up. He is even more furious because she kept the truth from him till now. As he yells at her, his breath shortens and he falls unconscious. The doctors rush him to the ER when Luli remembers that he has had a leg pain for a long time. She recollects all his symptoms and claims that he has pulmonary embolism. Because of her quick thinking, they are able to diagnose him immediately. However, before the surgery, he goes into ventricular fibrillation. They shock him to bring his heartbeat back, but Luli is also hit by the electricity in the process. She is thrown to the floor because of the impact. Diego is taken to surgery while Luli waits outside. Later, she talks to Vanessa and realizes that she has lost the ability to read people's minds because of the electrical shock. In the following scene, Diego gains consciousness and Luli is relieved. His father also rushes to the hospital and is thankful to Paula for saving his son's life. At last, Diego and Luli reconcile and continue dating. In the end scene, we see the group finally graduate from med school. Diego and Luli are happy and excited for their life ahead. Years later, she is in her office working as a physician. An old woman comes to meet her, who turns out to be the lady she helped on the bus years ago. The movie ends as they laugh about the incident together.